Developing news now, former rap mogul Suge Knight is headed to prison for voluntary manslaughter. He ran down a man in the parking lot of a Compton burger stand about 3 years ago, and today he found out what his punishment's going to be. CBS 2's Cara Finstrom is there. Cara.
New footage of Suge Knight inside prison has surfaced, drawing attention and raising questions about life behind bars for the infamous mogul. The clips are shocking, the reactions are intense, and everyone is talking about it. In this video, I'll break down everything. From music mogul to incarcerated, where Suge Knight stands now. Suge Knight, once a towering figure in the 1990s hip-hop landscape as co-founder of Death Row Records, now finds himself navigating a vastly different world, that of incarceration. Knight's rise to prominence was meteoric. He transformed Death Row into a dominant force in music, signing legendary artists, shaping the West Coast rap sound, and wielding influence that extended far beyond the recording studio. Yet, in 2018, that narrative took a decisive turn when he was convicted of voluntary manslaughter stemming from a 2015 fatal hit-and-run that claimed the life of Terry Carter. The severity of the offense, compounded by prior convictions, resulted in a 28-year prison sentence, a sentence that effectively ended his freedom and reshaped his public persona.
I'm Suge Knight. Between the lines, the best thing that ever happened. It's my first experience. I love it. Look forward to it. Do the best, be the best, and all blessings.
As of late 2025, Knight remains incarcerated at R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego. His attempt earlier this year to challenge or overturn the conviction was rejected, cementing both the legal outcome and the trajectory of his sentence. What this status reveals is a profound reversal. From commanding boardrooms, negotiating record deals, and managing a roster of influential artists, Knight now exists under the strictures of a correctional institution. He is subject to the same rules, routines, and accountability measures as any other inmate, a reality that stands in stark contrast to the near untouchable figure he once was in music circles. The shift is not just logistical or procedural, it is symbolic. Knight's arc illustrates a broader societal point, that notoriety, influence, or wealth cannot shield an individual from the consequences of violent actions. The juxtaposition between his former celebrity and his current confinement underscores both the limits of fame and the enduring reach of the legal system. Yet public fascination with Knight has not waned. Media outlets, fans, and cultural commentators continue to follow his story, in part because it intersects with questions about the legacy of 1990s hip-hop, celebrity accountability, and the ways in which public figures navigate moral and legal responsibility. For many, Knight embodies a cautionary tale, a living example of how a life built on power, intimidation, and influence can ultimately collide with the realities of law and consequence. In this sense, his incarceration is both an end and a continuation. An end to his freedom, but a continuation of his influence over conversations about culture, crime, and accountability in the music industry. Legacy and infamy. How past influence colors, present perception. Suge Knight's legacy is one of stark contrasts, a narrative defined by both immense cultural influence and profound personal controversy. As co-founder of Death Row Records, Knight was central to an era of hip-hop that reshaped the music industry, producing and promoting artists who would become global icons. He helped launch careers, cultivate the West Coast sound, and redefine the business of rap music. His decisions, vision, and business acumen left a mark that persists in how fans and historians understand the genre. In this sense, Knight is more than just a figurehead. He was a driving force in shaping a generation of hip-hop culture, influencing everything from sound and style to the broader cultural prominence of rap in the 1990s.
I mean, if you hear the stories, I mean, Suge Knight has that reputation. He has that reputation.
Yet alongside this undeniable influence lies a darker, more troubling record. Knight's criminal history, legal entanglements, and ultimate conviction for a fatal hit-and-run that killed Terry Carter in 2015 complicate how his legacy is interpreted. These events underscore the reality that Knight's life and career were entangled with acts of violence and intimidation, patterns that cannot easily be disentangled from his cultural contributions. For many observers, this duality raises difficult ethical questions. Can the transformative impact he had on music coexist with the moral weight of his actions? Should his contributions to culture temper the perception of his criminality, or are they inseparable from the harms he caused? This tension fuels ongoing public debate. Among fans, some view Knight as a cautionary figure, a stark example of how fame, wealth, and influence do not place anyone above the law. Others regard him as a tragic fallen icon, someone whose audacity and ambition left a permanent imprint on music, yet whose choices brought about personal and public consequences. That ambivalence ensures that Suge Knight's name remains a topic of discussion, not merely in relation to crime and punishment, but also in the context of art, culture, and accountability. Ultimately, his legacy cannot be summarized in a single narrative. It is a complex interplay of achievement and infamy, creativity and violence, influence and consequence. Knight's story continues to challenge fans, critics, and scholars to confront uncomfortable questions about how society evaluates cultural figures, whether we separate the art from the artist, or whether the human behind the legacy shapes our perception of the art itself. In this ongoing conversation, Suge Knight remains a figure who simultaneously fascinates, polarizes, and provokes reflection. Prison sentence and parole prospects. When, if ever, could he be free? Legally, Suge Knight's 28-year sentence for voluntary manslaughter comes with the technical provision of parole eligibility, but it offers no guarantee of early release. Public records indicate that, under current regulations, Knight could first be considered for parole in October 2034. Yet this eligibility is merely procedural. It does not assure freedom. Parole decisions involve a comprehensive evaluation of numerous factors, including the inmate's behavior during incarceration, adherence to institutional rules, engagement in rehabilitation programs, and demonstration of remorse or accountability. In Knight's case, his extensive criminal history and the severity of his offense, a fatal hit-and-run in 2015 that claimed the life of Terry Carter, weigh heavily against him. Analysts examining his situation generally regard early release as unlikely, given both the nature of the crime and the public scrutiny surrounding his case.
Pursuant to Penal Code Section 667, Subsection A, Subsection 1, the prior conviction the defendant has admitted, he is liable an additional 5 years in state prison for a total unstayed term of 28 years.
This time, the defendant is ordered transferred to Department 120 to have a dismissal on the other matter, which is part of this plea bargain.
Beyond the parole process itself, legal setbacks have further limited Knight's avenues for altering his sentence. In March 2025, a judge rejected his motion to overturn the original conviction, effectively closing one of the few remaining avenues for reducing his prison term. This ruling confirms that Knight's legal challenges are now largely exhausted, leaving the remainder of his sentence effectively unalterable under current law. For Knight, this reality represents not just a loss of freedom, but the formal acknowledgement of accountability within the legal system, a stark contrast to the power and influence he wielded in the music industry. For observers, Knight's circumstances raise broader questions about life after celebrity. Once a figure who operated at the pinnacle of hip-hop, negotiating record deals and shaping the careers of iconic artists, he is now subject to the routine, regulation, and scrutiny of correctional life. Public fascination persists, partly because Knight embodies a rare intersection of fame, notoriety, and legal consequence. His situation forces contemplation about whether someone who once occupied a position of immense cultural power can ever stage a meaningful comeback, artistically, socially, or economically, after decades in confinement. Ultimately, Knight's current legal status is a concrete reminder of the enduring consequences of criminal behavior, even for those who once seemed untouchable. The interplay of parole, judicial decisions, and public perception ensures that his incarceration is not just a personal reality, but a focal point in ongoing discussions about celebrity accountability, justice, and the long-term impact of crime on legacy and reputation. Public voice from prison, still in the spotlight. Despite confinement, even while serving a lengthy prison sentence, Suge Knight has not entirely faded from public attention. Reports suggest that he continues to comment on controversies and developments within the hip-hop world, finding ways to maintain a presence despite the constraints of incarceration. Whether through statements relayed by associates, legal representatives, or sporadic communication with media outlets, Knight's voice persists in conversations surrounding the culture he helped shape. This phenomenon illustrates a broader point about celebrity and notoriety. Influence does not automatically vanish behind bars. For public figures of Knight's stature, the reach of their legacy can extend beyond physical confinement, shaping narratives, inspiring commentary, and influencing perception.
Because I don't think none of these people psychic, and I'm not. You know what happened to the last psychic big bitch? She ended up, whoever her name was, with the fake roster boys. You know what happened to her? It all went bad. So I don't like to speculate. So I just tell the truth how it is.
The continued visibility of a high-profile convict raises compelling questions about the relationship between fame and accountability. Prison is traditionally conceived as a space for isolation, reflection, and, potentially, rehabilitation. Yet in Knight's case, his ongoing presence in the public eye complicates that assumption. Does incarceration silence the controversial figure, or does it simply shift the medium through which that figure communicates? Knight's situation demonstrates that notoriety can adapt, moving from concerts, boardrooms, and public events to indirect influence via media coverage, legal developments, or commentary filtered through third parties. This phenomenon also underscores the enduring imprint Knight has left on hip-hop culture. His role in the rise of Death Row Records, his association with iconic artists, and his larger-than-life personality ensured that even his absence is noticed. The continued discourse around his persona complicates narratives of redemption or retreat. If a high-profile individual can still shape conversations from behind bars, the line between past celebrity and current confinement becomes blurred. For observers and cultural analysts, Knight's ongoing presence invites reflection on multiple levels. It challenges assumptions about the capacity for transformation within the prison system. It highlights how fame can persist despite legal accountability, and it forces consideration of the broader societal fascination with high-profile figures who fall from grace. In essence, Suge Knight exemplifies a unique paradox. Physically removed from the world, yet culturally and symbolically active, a figure whose incarceration does not erase influence, but rather transforms the ways in which that influence manifests. His story prompts enduring questions about the power of legacy, the limits of punishment, and the resilience of fame. Legal status and what's next, sentence, parole, and the long road ahead. Suge Knight's legal situation remains firmly anchored in his 2018 conviction for voluntary manslaughter, stemming from a 2015 fatal hit-and-run that resulted in the death of Terry Carter. The consequences of that conviction are far-reaching. Knight is serving a 28-year sentence, and his attempts to challenge or overturn that ruling have so far been unsuccessful. In 2025, a judge rejected his motion to appeal the sentence, effectively cementing the original judgment. Legally, this means that barring extraordinary interventions, Knight will continue his incarceration under the terms already established. The ruling not only underscores the severity of the crime, but also signals the justice system's intention to maintain accountability, even for someone who once wielded immense cultural influence.
To the man who was once the most feared figure in all of hip-hop. But here he is now, Suge Knight, a former rap powerhouse, collapsing in court, where he's facing a murder charge. The man who built an empire, founding Death Row Records, now facing life in prison, and ABC's Brandy Hitt is on the story.
While the sentence technically allows for parole eligibility, this option is far from a guarantee. Public records indicate that Knight could first be considered for parole in October 2034. However, parole boards evaluate a wide array of factors, including behavior and conduct during incarceration, compliance with prison regulations, participation in rehabilitation programs, risk assessments regarding public safety, and sometimes input from victims' families. In Knight's case, his criminal history, the circumstances of the 2015 incident, and his public notoriety make early release highly improbable. Analysts widely consider it unlikely that the parole board would exercise discretion to shorten his time behind bars. Beyond the legal mechanics, Knight's situation raises larger questions about accountability, privilege, and the intersection of fame and justice. Once at the pinnacle of cultural and financial power in the music industry, he now confronts a reality shared by any individual convicted of violent crime: the loss of liberty and the imposition of systemic oversight. His case continues to resonate with hip-hop fans, journalists, and observers of the criminal justice system, particularly because it highlights the tension between celebrity and accountability. Moreover, Knight's incarceration functions as a recurring point of discussion in broader societal conversations. Media coverage, public discourse, and debates around criminal justice reform often reference his case as an example of how power and notoriety intersect with the law. His story prompts reflection on how society navigates consequences for high-profile offenders, how culture responds to their fall, and how legacy persists even when freedom is legally constrained. In this context, Knight's sentence is not merely a personal consequence, but a lens through which broader questions about crime, punishment, and the limits of fame are continually examined. Legacy under scrutiny, cultural impact versus criminal past. Few figures in hip-hop have a legacy as polarizing as Suge Knight's. On one side, he was once instrumental in building a powerhouse label, Death Row Records, launching or promoting major artists, shaping the sound and business of 1990s West Coast rap, and leaving a lasting imprint on the genre's evolution.
Suge tried to destroy my record company with the help of others, Dre. So right now we're getting everything back together and we finna come out, fully loaded.
On the other side, the violent controversies, allegations of intimidation, gang affiliations, and his eventual conviction for a fatal crime cast a dark shadow over that contribution. This tension fuels ongoing debate. can, or should, cultural influence be separated from personal and legal wrongdoing? For many critics and fans, Knight's legacy is now irrevocably tainted. This struggle over legacy plays out in public discourse whenever the early hip-hop era is revisited, or when new generations discover the music of that time. Knight's name evokes both nostalgia and condemnation. As time passes, how people, especially younger listeners, interpret his contributions may shift. But for now, every mention of death row or 90s rap inevitably brings up his complicated, controversial legacy, ongoing relevance, influence, controversy, and public memory. Even decades after his rise and long after his imprisonment, Suge Knight remains a figure of public fascination. His name continues to appear in news about music history, unresolved controversies, including those involving Tupac Shakur, and broader cultural debates around violence and celebrity. For example, even in 2025, Knight's old influence and new statements still provoke reactions across media outlets and social platforms.
Like,
Okay.
And the way that he described
Yeah.
his preferred method of taking care of somebody was eerily reminiscent or like similar to like how Easy passed.
Part of that relevance stems from what he symbolizes, the collision between creative genius, industry ambition, and criminal action. In societies wrestling with fame, accountability, justice, and redemption, especially in communities disproportionately affected by violence, Knight's story remains a cautionary, provocative example. Moreover, his case continues to matter in debates around the responsibilities of record labels, the accountability for crimes among industry elites, and how history remembers artists with controversial pasts. As hip-hop evolves, younger artists and fans often revisit the roots of the genre. Knight, for better or worse, remains embedded in those roots. In that sense, his influence doesn't end with prison walls. His legacy continues to shape conversations about music, justice, memory, and cultural responsibility, ensuring that even behind bars, he remains part of the story. New footage of Suge Knight inside prison has surfaced, offering a rare glimpse into his life behind bars. Fans and critics alike are analyzing every moment, from his demeanor to his surroundings, trying to read between the lines. What this means for his legacy, ongoing controversies, and public perception is only beginning to emerge. Stay tuned, because the next revelation could shift the conversation entirely.